Welcome, dear listener, to History One, where the past whispers its forgotten truths through the mists of time. If you love stories buried beneath marble halls, sealed letters, and royal bloodlines that vanished without explanation, then subscribe, for what you're about to hear is one of Europe's most haunting enigmas. Tonight, we uncover the mystery of the Lost Heir of Spain, a tale so deeply shrouded in deception that even centuries later, the Spanish crown still refuses to speak of it aloud. It began, as such things often do, not with a cry of birth, but with silence. Madrid, 1627. The court of King Philip IV shimmered beneath chandeliers of Venetian glass, echoing with the laughter of courtiers and the faint rustle of silk gowns. Spain was still, at least on the surface, the greatest empire in the world. Its fleets conquered oceans, its gold-filled vaults, its faith ruled the conscience of kings. Yet beneath that glittering facade, the House of Habsburg trembled. The Queen, Elizabeth of France, had just given birth to a son, a long-awaited heir to the Spanish throne. Bells rang, priests chanted blessings, and cannons thundered across the capital. The people rejoiced. The line of Habsburgs was secure. But within the gilded chambers of the Alcazar Palace, a different kind of whisper began. Because 3 nights after the prince's birth, the child vanished, not stolen by an enemy, not claimed by a nurse, simply gone. His cradle was empty, the royal guards found sleeping under the influence of some unknown draught, and the Queen's scream, that single scream, was said to echo through the corridors for years afterward. The official statement declared the infant dead of a sudden ailment. A small white coffin was paraded through the streets. The people mourned. The king wept. But behind closed doors, something did not fit. The coffin, it was said, felt too light, and not one soul, not a servant, not a midwife, not even the priest who read the final rites, had seen the infant's face in death. And thus, the legend began. For nearly 4 centuries, the story of the lost heir has haunted Spain's royal chronicles. Some say the prince was taken by the Queen herself, hidden away to protect him from the political poison of Madrid's court. Others insist he was exchanged, smuggled into a monastery, and raised under another name. But what few know is this: a single letter, sealed with the Queen's private crest, survived. And within that fragile parchment, hidden inside a rosary box found in an old convent near Toledo in 1893, was written, "If this child lives, Spain will one day live again. They will never find him, unless heaven wills it." That letter was signed simply, E. Regina. And so, historians dismissed it as a forgery. Yet there were accounts, faint, unproven, but persistent, of a boy who grew up far from Madrid in the shadow of the Pyrenees. A boy who bore the same birthmark as the missing prince, a crimson star-shaped mark on his right shoulder. The boy's name was recorded as Miguel de la Cruz. He appeared suddenly in church records in 1633, 6 years after the prince's supposed death. His lineage, unknown. His tutor, a French Jesuit sent from Paris under mysterious orders. And yet, this boy would grow to be the center of one of the most dangerous conspiracies ever whispered in Spain, one that involved priests, noblemen, and even a secret pact with France itself. But the strangest part is how his story ends, because in 1654, at the age of 27, Miguel vanished, just as the prince had. No grave, no witness, no explanation. Only a journal remained, filled with sketches of royal insignias, strange coded notes in Latin, and one haunting sentence written again and again on the final page. I am the son of 2 crowns, yet heir to none. And so we must ask, who was Miguel de la Cruz? Was he truly the lost heir, hidden to protect Spain's fragile power from imploding under the Habsburgs' secret diseases of blood and faith? Or was he merely a shadow, a pawn in a much larger game of deception between kings and churches, where even birthright could be rewritten by a single pen stroke? As we peel back the layers of this enigma, we will travel from the court of Madrid to the cloisters of secret monasteries, through coded letters smuggled across Europe and into the dark heart of royal succession, where truth and treason often wear the same mask. Because to understand the mystery of the lost heir, we must understand what Spain was willing to hide and what it feared the world might discover. The first thread of this story begins not with the prince, but with the queen herself and her desperate secret, the one that could destroy the Spanish throne forever. They said Queen Elizabeth of France never smiled again after that night. But that, like so many royal legends, was a lie. In truth, the queen did smile, at least in public. She appeared in court a month after the tragedy, draped in widow's black, serene, devout, her face pale and composed. She touched the hands of courtiers, accepted condolences, and thanked the archbishop for his prayers. Her performance was immaculate, even for a queen born in the shadow of Versailles, yet those who attended her in private noticed something darker. The queen's ladies whispered of midnight prayers that lasted until dawn, of letters burned before the ink dried, and of one man, an unfamiliar face, who was seen entering her chambers under guard of silence. A physician, they said, or perhaps a messenger. His name was Father Adrien Morel, a Jesuit from Rouen, recently arrived at the Spanish court under papal recommendation. The Frenchman spoke softly, always in Latin, and never lifted his eyes in the Queen's presence. But his presence coincided with a strange new habit of hers, writing letters that no one else was allowed to carry, letters that were sealed with black wax and sent not to Rome, but to Toulouse. Years later, when the Inquisition searched through the archives of Toledo, they found fragments of these exchanges. Most had been burned, but one survived. The handwriting was unmistakable, Queen Elizabeth's. The king suspects nothing. The child will be known by another name. His life must remain hidden until Spain can bear the truth. Below that, in another hand, steady, disciplined, with the elegance of a scholar, was written, "Then may God forgive us both, for we have rewritten his will." The signature, A. Morel. It is said that Queen Elizabeth's heart broke the night her son was taken, but perhaps what truly broke her was not grief, but guilt. She had seen the baby's face only once, before the physicians took him away. The infant was small, fragile, with a faint reddish mark upon his shoulder that made the court whisper of divine favor. Yet behind the blessing lay something more sinister. The child's eyes were clouded. His limbs trembled unnaturally. Rumors spread quickly among the court physicians that the heir bore the same deformities that had plagued the Habsburg line for generations, the curse of their own blood. If the child lived, Spain would have a king unfit to rule. If he died, the throne might pass to another branch, perhaps even to the French Bourbons through the Queen's kin. And so the whispers grew. Had the Queen hidden her son not to save him, but to save Spain itself? But what of King Philip IV? He was a man of pride and piety, burdened by an empire that stretched beyond his grasp. To the people, he was the Catholic king, defender of the faith, chosen by God. To those who knew him, he was a man haunted by ghosts, the ghosts of wars lost, of treasure fleets sunk, of courtiers who plotted behind their fans. When the Queen's child vanished, Philip's fury was volcanic. He ordered the palace sealed, servants interrogated, even the midwives tortured in secret chambers beneath the Alcazar. Not one confessed to murder nor theft. One died of fear before the lash even touched her. For weeks, he refused to enter the Queen's chambers. When he finally did, the court chroniclers recorded a scene of chilling silence. The king stood over his wife, his eyes empty, and said only one thing: "If God has taken him, I will not ask why. But if man has hidden him, then man will answer for it." And with that, he left her kneeling before the crucifix, clutching a rosary that would later be found broken, its beads scattered across the floor like spilled tears. Years passed. The court moved on, as courts always do. New heirs were born, new alliances forged, new wars fought. Yet somewhere far from the marble corridors of Madrid, a different life was unfolding. In a remote village at the foothills of the Pyrenees, a child was baptized in a small stone chapel. The records, kept by a cautious priest, describe the event simply: Miguel de la Cruz, foundling, baptized under the care of Father Adrián Morel. The child's features were unusual: golden hair rare in that region, eyes of a grayish blue that seemed to shift with the light. The villagers often remarked that he spoke both Castilian and French before the age of 5. When asked about his origins, Father Morel only smiled faintly and said, "He comes from where the sun meets the crown." Miguel grew up surrounded by mystery. He was taught by monks who never spoke his true name, trained in Latin and theology, and, curiously, fencing, a skill no peasant child should possess. The priest who kept the chapel swore that visitors came often, bearing gifts, fine paper, ink, foreign coins stamped with royal seals, and sometimes, when the wind blew from the south, the villagers claimed they saw riders on black horses waiting by the chapel gates at night. By the time Miguel reached manhood, Father Morel was gone, dead, they said, from a fever. But the truth whispered otherwise. The Jesuit's grave was empty. Left alone, Miguel began to write. Letters, sketches, strange coded entries in Latin. He drew maps of cities he'd never seen: Madrid, Toledo, Paris, and always, in the margins, the same strange symbol, a crown split in two by a cross. The last record of him in the parish book reads, "Left for Madrid, called by duty, 1654. He never returned, but what came next would shake the Spanish throne in secret and almost change the course of Europe." Madrid, spring of 1654. The city was a living contradiction, a place where gold from the New World built cathedrals that smelled of incense and rot, where priests whispered prayers over merchants' ledgers, and where, beneath the facade of divine order, the gears of ambition turned like a silent machine. Into this world stepped Miguel de la Cruz, a young man with the bearing of nobility, but the papers of a commoner. He wore a dark cloak trimmed modestly, his hair cropped close, his eyes sharp yet guarded. To anyone passing him in the Plaza Mayor, he seemed like another scholar or clerk in search of patronage. Yet those who looked closer, those with the instincts of spies, might have seen something else. He moved like someone accustomed to being watched. Miguel's destination was the Monasterio de San Jerónimo el Real, a quiet monastery near the edge of the city. Once, it had been a place of royal prayer. Now, it was something else entirely, a meeting ground for men who served the crown's secrets. Inside, a man awaited him. Elderly, broad-shouldered despite his years, with the gaze of one who had looked into too many confessions. His robes marked him as a member of the Inquisition. "Your name," the old man said without looking up from his desk. "Miguel de la Cruz," he replied calmly. "Of where?" "Navarre." A pause. The Inquisitor finally raised his eyes. They were cold, assessing. "No one is of Navarre. One is either Castilian or French." Miguel met the gaze without flinching. "Then perhaps I am both." For a long moment, the room was silent. Then, to Miguel's surprise, the Inquisitor smiled. "So it is true what they say. The boy from the mountains has come to claim his destiny." Miguel said nothing, though his pulse quickened. The old man reached into a drawer and drew out a parchment. It was brittle, sealed with wax, and marked with the crest of the Queen's household. "Do you know what this is?" He didn't, but something inside him stirred, a flicker of memory, like a voice calling through water. "It was written by Queen Elizabeth herself," the Inquisitor said, "to a Jesuit by the name of Father Adrien Morel. He died, or rather, disappeared, 20 years ago. The letter was never delivered. The courier was intercepted." He leaned forward. "It speaks of you." Miguel's world seemed to tilt. He had long suspected he was no ordinary orphan. The education, the secrecy, the strange protection he'd received since childhood, all hinted at something larger. But to hear the Queen's name tied to his own, he asked to see the letter. The Inquisitor hesitated, then handed it over. The parchment was yellowed, the ink faded, but the handwriting was unmistakably elegant. "To my confessor and friend, Father Adrian, the child is safe. Heaven has granted him a second birth, far from those who would destroy him. When the time is right, he must be told who he is, that he may reclaim what was taken. Tell him this: he bears the mark of the sun and the crown. Spain will need him when the shadows return. Elizabeth, by the grace of God, Queen of Spain." Miguel felt the air leave his lungs. The mark, the faint star on his shoulder, which he'd always assumed a quirk of birth, flashed in his mind. He looked up, heart hammering. "Why are you showing me this?" The Inquisitor's eyes softened, almost with pity. "Because Spain is dying," he said quietly. "The king grows old. The new prince, his only surviving son, is frail, sickly. There are whispers that he will not live to manhood. The empire is bleeding, rotting from within. Some believe." He paused, then spoke the words like a prayer. "Some believe that the lost heir was meant to return." That night, Miguel couldn't sleep. The words of the letter circled in his mind like a haunting refrain. He bears the mark of the sun and the crown. Could it be true? Could he, a foundling from the mountains, be the blood of kings? He remembered Father Morel's teachings, the endless lessons in Latin and history, the strange insistence that he study politics and theology. The priest's last words to him returned like an echo from a dream. "You must learn to rule yourself before you can rule others." It had always sounded like philosophy, but now it felt like prophecy. Days later, another summons came, this time not from the church, but from a nobleman. The messenger brought a ring as proof of authenticity, a golden band bearing the emblem of the House of Guzman, one of Spain's oldest and most powerful families. Miguel was instructed to come alone after sunset to the gardens of the Count of Olivares. He obeyed. The gardens were vast and silent, lit only by torches and the silver sheen of moonlight. There, waiting beside a marble fountain, stood a man wrapped in velvet and arrogance, Don Alvaro de Guzman, the cousin to the king himself. He studied Miguel with amused curiosity. So this is the boy they whisper about, the ghost of Madrid's firstborn. Miguel's voice was low. I don't know what you mean. Oh, I think you do, the Count said, stepping closer. You look just like him, you know. The same jaw, the same cursed eyes. What do you want from me? The Count smiled thinly. Want? Nothing. But the Queen's letter has stirred old bloodlines. There are those who think Spain needs a new heir, one not tainted by weakness or foreign intrigue. And there are others. He leaned in, voice dropping to a whisper, who would kill to make sure that heir never returns. A pause. Choose wisely, Miguel de la Cruz. Or should I say, Don Felipe de Austria. Before Miguel could speak, the Count turned and disappeared into the shadows, leaving him standing by the fountain, the water rippling like broken glass. The name echoed in his mind, over and over, until he could no longer tell whether it was a curse or his destiny. Don Felipe de Austria, the lost Prince of Spain. For days after that encounter, Miguel could hardly eat or rest. Every sound in the street made him flinch. Every passing shadow seemed to follow him. The name Don Felipe de Austria echoed through his thoughts like a bell that could never be unrung. He began to notice signs that he was being watched. A man in a brown cloak lingered near the monastery gate each evening. A letter slipped beneath his door, vanished before dawn. Once, as he crossed the Plaza de la Villa, a woman brushed past him, whispering in French, Ils savent maintenant. They know now. The web had begun to tighten. That same week, a quiet rumor spread through the palace. King Philip IV had fallen gravely ill. His health had always been fragile, but this time the physicians spoke in hushed voices. Madrid grew restless. Who would rule if the king died? The legitimate heir, young Charles, was frail. Some said he could not even walk without aid. And in that uncertainty, old ambitions awoke. Don Alvaro de Guzman summoned Miguel again, this time under the guise of confession. The meeting took place in the sacristy of San Jeronimo, far from prying ears. You are in danger, the Count began without preamble. There are those who already suspect who you are. The king's spy master has heard whispers of a bastardo real, a royal child hidden by the queen. He thinks France sent you. Miguel's jaw tightened. And what do you believe? The Count's smile was thin. I believe in survival. Spain needs a strong ruler, one who can unite its people before everything collapses. You could be that ruler, if you accept what you are. He reached into his cloak and produced a small velvet pouch. Inside lay a medallion, the royal crest of Castile, engraved on one side, the fleur-de-lis of France on the other. Your mother, the Count said, was torn between two worlds. This was made for you before you were taken. Keep it, but hide it well. Miguel turned the medallion in his hand. The weight of it felt unbearable. That night, he fled the monastery. He knew he could no longer stay. The city's silence had turned dangerous. He disguised himself as a merchant's clerk and took refuge in the lower quarters, where no one asked questions and gold spoke louder than blood. Yet even there, Madrid's whispers reached him. Someone was searching for the priest's foundling. Servants vanished. A Jesuit scholar was found drowned in the Tagus. The old inquisitor who had shown him the queen's letter was reported dead, a fall from the cloister stairs. The record said. The message was clear. Someone powerful wanted the past to stay buried. Weeks turned into months. Then, one summer evening, as bells tolled across the city, a letter arrived for him, sealed in black wax. He opened it cautiously. "My son, if you still live, go north to Zaragoza. There you will find a monastery called San Vicente. The abbot knows the truth of your birth. Trust no one from court, not even those who call you prince. They serve two masters. When the moon rises red, it will be time." There was no doubt whose hand had written it. The same elegant loops, the same calm authority. Queen Elizabeth. But she had died years ago. Miguel stared at the letter until the ink seemed to move on the page. If the queen was truly gone, who had written it? And how had they known to call him my son? He didn't wait to find out. Within the week, he left Madrid, traveling north under cover of night, disguised as a pilgrim bound for Santiago. The road to Zaragoza was long and dangerous. He rode through burned villages and empty farmlands, remnants of Spain's endless wars. Along the way, he was joined by a small band of travelers, a mute friar, a wounded soldier, and a woman dressed as a servant who seemed to know far more than she admitted. One night, as they camped by the Ebro River, the woman finally spoke his name, his true name. "Don Felipe," she said softly, as if testing how it sounded in the air. He froze. "Who are you?" She removed her hood. In the firelight, he saw features both noble and familiar, the same cold grace he'd seen in portraits of the royal family. "My name is Inés de Morel," she said, "daughter of Father Adrien." The priest's daughter. She handed him a leather-bound book, his old tutor's journal, sealed and hidden for decades. Inside were codes, drawings, and a map marked with a single phrase, "La verdad del sol," the truth of the sun. Miguel looked up at her. "What is this?" Inez's eyes met his. "It's the key to who you are, and why Spain tried to erase you." From that moment, Miguel knew there was no turning back. The road ahead would lead him not only to Zaragoza, but into the deepest vaults of royal deceit, where his birthright, his faith, and his life were all bound by a single, unforgivable secret. And for the first time in his life, he felt both terrified and alive. They reached Zaragoza at dusk. The sky burned crimson, the kind of blood-red twilight that makes even the most faithful wonder if heaven is worn in them. The monastery of San Vicente sat on a low hill above the city, its walls worn by centuries of wind. Bells tolled as they approached, though no monks appeared at the gates. Miguel dismounted and knocked 3 times, as the letter had instructed. At last, a small hatch slid open. 2 eyes studied him in silence. "What do you seek, pilgrim?" the voice asked. "The truth," Miguel replied. "And the abbot." The gate opened without another word. Inside, the monastery felt more like a fortress. The air smelled of ink and wax. Candles flickered against stone walls, lined with scrolls and strange sigils. They were led through a series of narrow corridors to a chamber where an old man waited, the abbot of San Vicente, wrapped in robes as dark as the night beyond. When he spoke, his voice was surprisingly gentle. "So, the son of the sun has come home." Miguel froze. "You know who I am?" The abbot smiled faintly. "We have known since the day you were taken. The church keeps its own records, even those the crown tries to destroy. He motioned to a desk stacked with sealed manuscripts. Your mother, Queen Elizabeth, entrusted us with these before she died. Letters, decrees, proof of your birth and baptism, all copied and hidden here. Miguel's heart pounded. Then it's true. I am the rightful heir to the throne of Spain. The abbot finished. Yes, but truth, my son, is a dangerous crown. He was given food, a bed, and more importantly, access to the archive. For 3 nights he read by candlelight, devouring every document the abbot placed before him. One letter struck him hardest, dated 1627, written in the Queen's own hand and addressed to the Pope himself. Most Holy Father, I beg your mercy and counsel. The physicians have told me my son bears the mark of the Habsburg sickness. His body is weak, but his mind shines like morning. My husband believes him dead, but I could not let him die at their hands. I have given him to the care of Father Adrian, who will raise him far from court. I ask only this, that when Spain is ready, you tell the truth. At the bottom, a small red seal, the papal crest the Vatican had known all along. Miguel turned to the abbot. Why hide me? If my claim is true, Spain has been ruled by false kings for nearly 30 years. The abbot's expression darkened. Spain was not ready for another war of succession. The Inquisition would have torn the realm apart in the name of faith. Your mother chose silence to protect the kingdom, and you. Protect? Miguel's voice trembled. She condemned me to live like a ghost. The abbot said nothing for a moment. Then, would you rather have been a martyr before your first breath? The silence that followed was heavy, ancient. Inez watched him quietly from the doorway. Later that night, she brought him Father Adrian's journal again and pointed to a page covered in Latin and strange diagrams. Look here, she said. My father wrote of an order within the church. Men loyal not to Rome or Madrid, but to the bloodline of the Queen. They were called custodes solis, keepers of the sun. The sun, Miguel repeated softly, like the mark on my shoulder. Yes, she nodded. Their purpose was to protect you, to preserve the truth until you were ready. But something happened. They were hunted down by the Inquisition. Only fragments of their order remain. She hesitated before adding, I think the abbot is one of them. Before dawn, Miguel returned to the chapel to pray, or perhaps to confront the silence of God. He had believed himself an orphan, then a scholar, then a fugitive. Now he was told he was a prince, a secret king in exile. He stared up at the crucifix. If this is your will, he whispered, then give me a sign. At that moment, the first rays of morning light broke through the stained glass, striking directly upon his shoulder, where the faint red mark gleamed like fire. He didn't need a priest to tell him what it meant. He was done hiding. That same evening, riders approached the monastery, a dozen soldiers bearing the banner of Castile. Their leader, a stern captain in the king's colors, demanded entry in the name of the crown. The monastery harbors a traitor, he declared, a man claiming the name of Felipe de Austria. The abbot met them at the gate. You are mistaken, he said calmly. There is no such man here. The captain's hand went to his sword. Then you won't mind if we look. Miguel and Inez watched from the shadows of the cloister. She whispered, They found us. Someone betrayed the order. Miguel felt his heart harden. Then we'll show them the truth. Before the soldiers could enter, a bell rang from the tower, loud, insistent, the alarm of the monastery. The monks scattered like phantoms. In the confusion, Miguel and Inez slipped through a side passage toward the stables. Behind them, shouts rose, torches flared, and the air filled with the clamor of steel. They mounted and rode north into the dark, the moon rising blood red over the hills. The prophecy of the Queen's final letter had come true. When the moon rises red, it will be time. But time for what? Miguel did not yet know, only that the truth of his birth was now a weapon, one powerful enough to save Spain or to destroy it forever. They rode through the night without stopping. The hoofbeats of their horses echoed like drums across the empty fields, each one a reminder that pursuit was certain. By dawn, both riders were weary, coated in dust, but neither dared rest until the monastery of San Vicente was far behind them. When they finally halted near a grove of cypress trees, the horizon glowed faintly gold. Inez slid from her saddle, clutching her side. "They'll send riders to every road leading north," she said, breathless. "We'll have to move west, toward Aragon." Miguel nodded, staring back toward the faint column of smoke rising where the monastery once stood. "They burned it," he murmured, "to erase every trace of the truth." Inez's eyes were hard. "Then we'll carry it with us." For several days they traveled in secret, sleeping in barns and chapels, paying peasants in silver coins marked with the French fleur-de-lis, relics from Father Adrien's cache. Along the way, Miguel learned more about the Custodes Solis, the keepers of the sun. According to Inez, the order had been founded decades earlier by Jesuits who believed that the Spanish throne, tainted by inbreeding and corruption, needed purification. Their prophecy spoke of a hidden prince, one born of both Spain and France, who would renew the crown under divine guidance. "You," she said one evening by the campfire, "are that prince, whether you wish to be or not." Miguel stared into the flames. "And if I refuse? Then Spain will fall to pieces, and the secret dies with you." He gave a dry laugh. "Perhaps that would be a mercy." Inez leaned forward. "Do you really believe that? Look around you. The peasants starve while the nobles feast. The church bleeds the poor and calls it piety. If your mother risked everything to save you, it wasn't for you to hide. It was for you to choose." He met her gaze, and for a moment the firelight reflected in her eyes like gold. "Choose what?" "Whether Spain will live or die." Their journey led them to the outskirts of Zaragoza, where an aging nobleman named Don Rodrigo de Villalba offered sanctuary. Once a loyal advisor to Queen Elizabeth, he had withdrawn from court after her death, claiming ill health. In truth, he had been one of the last surviving keepers of the sun. When Miguel arrived, the old man greeted him not as a stranger, but with tears in his eyes. "At last," he whispered, falling to one knee. "The Queen's son returns to Spain." The house was filled with relics of another age, portraits of the royal family, hidden maps, wax-sealed boxes of letters. Rodrigo led them to a hidden chamber behind a tapestry where the emblem of Castile and the fleur-de-lis intertwined, the forbidden crest of the lost heir. He placed a hand on Miguel's shoulder. "You are the blood of two crowns. That makes you both Spain's hope and its greatest threat." Miguel said softly, "Then help me understand what my mother wanted." Rodrigo smiled faintly. "She wanted peace, but peace, my prince, often demands truth, and truth is what the throne fears most." For the next weeks, Rodrigo taught Miguel everything the Queen had hidden: the secret treaties between France and Spain, the forged birth records, the papal letters buried in the archives of Toledo. He showed him documents proving that the official heir, young Prince Charles, had been declared legitimate only after the Queen's firstborn was reported dead. If the truth surfaced, the current royal line would crumble. The king's advisors would never allow it, Rodrigo warned. They would kill you before letting the name Felipe de Austria return to Madrid. Miguel clenched his fists. Then I will not return as a name. I will return as a truth they cannot bury. Inez watched him quietly, a shadow of both admiration and fear crossing her face. But before their plan could take shape, betrayal struck again. One stormy night, while Miguel and Rodrigo debated whether to seek allies among the French court, the door to the chamber burst open. Soldiers in royal uniform flooded in, swords drawn. The captain leading them was the same man who had hunted Miguel at San Vicente. "By order of His Majesty Philip IV," he announced, "you are under arrest for treason, blasphemy, and the false claim of royal blood." Rodrigo stepped forward, his voice firm. "You have no authority here. This man is..." The captain's blade silenced him before he could finish. Blood splattered across the tapestries. Inez screamed. Miguel seized a dagger from the table, but the captain was faster. The two clashed amid the thunder and candlelight, the sound of steel echoing through the hall. "Traitor!" the captain hissed, striking again and again. "Spain has no need for another ghost prince." Miguel ducked, parried, and drove the dagger upward. The captain fell with a gasp, his own sword slipping from his grasp. For a moment, everything was still except the rain against the windows. Then Rodrigo's body slumped to the floor. His last breath escaped as a whisper. "Find the vault. Beneath Toledo. The truth lies there." Miguel and Inez fled once more into the storm, carrying with them only Rodrigo's final words and a small scroll he had hidden inside his cloak. When they unrolled it hours later, under the shelter of an abandoned mill, they saw a map marked with the sigil of the Custodes Solis and one word written in blood-red ink: Veritas, truth, and beneath it a date, 1655, the following year. Miguel stared at it for a long time. "Whatever happens," he said quietly, "Spain will learn what it tried to forget." Inez nodded. "Then we go to Toledo." And somewhere in the darkness, as thunder rolled across the plains, Miguel de la Cruz, or Don Felipe de Austria, began his final march toward destiny. The truth was waiting, and so were his enemies. The road to Toledo was a road through ghosts. Every mile brought Miguel closer not just to the truth, but to the very heart of Spain, a city older than the crown itself, where Visigoth kings, Moorish sultans, and Christian monarchs had all left their shadows. Toledo was the soul of the empire and its graveyard. They traveled in disguise, posing as a merchant and his wife. The journey took weeks. Winter crept across the land, frosting the olive groves and turning the rivers to glass. Yet neither Miguel nor Inez spoke of turning back. Too much blood had already been spilled for silence. Each night, Miguel studied Rodrigo's map, tracing the path to the vault hidden beneath the old Cathedral of Toledo. According to the abbot's writings, it was built not as a crypt, but as a secret archive, a place where the church hid records too dangerous for any king to see. And if Rodrigo's dying words were true, it was there that the truth of the lost heir, his truth, had been buried. When they reached the city gates, Toledo was cloaked in mist. Bells tolled across the rooftops as they entered through the Puerta del Sol. Soldiers patrolled the streets more heavily than usual. The air carried rumors of royal illness and French spies. Miguel kept his hood low. "The king is dying," he murmured. "Spain is tearing itself apart." Inez replied, "Then your time has come, if we survive long enough to use it." They rented a small room in the old Jewish quarter. From there, Miguel began to make contact with old allies of Rodrigo, merchants, priests, and one unexpected friend. Brother Mateo, a former librarian of the cathedral, who had once belonged to the Custodes Solis. When Mateo saw the medallion bearing both the Castilian crown and the fleur-de-lis, his eyes widened. "So the prophecy was true," he whispered. "The son returns to Spain." He agreed to help them reach the vault, but warned that the church had changed since Rodrigo's time. The Inquisition has been busy cleansing heresies. Anything tied to your mother's name would have been ordered sealed or destroyed. Miguel replied, "Then we will unseal it." The entrance to the vault lay deep beneath the cathedral, through a door hidden behind the tomb of St. Eugenius. Mateo led them through candlelit tunnels carved from the bedrock, their walls lined with bones and dust. At last, they reached a heavy iron gate. Its lock was ancient, carved with Latin scripture. Inez handed Miguel a key she'd found among Rodrigo's effects. It fit perfectly. The gate groaned open, releasing a breath of cold air that smelled of centuries. Inside was a small chamber filled with stone chests, scrolls, and the remnants of forgotten confessions. Mateo lit a torch, and the walls came alive with symbols, the emblem of the Custodes Solis, a blazing sun pierced by a cross. "There," Inez whispered, pointing to a sealed chest in the corner. Miguel knelt and brushed away the dust. Upon its lid was carved a single phrase in Latin, "Veritas Filii Regis," the truth of the king's son. He broke the seal. Inside lay stacks of parchments, letters, and an ornate silver cross containing hidden compartments. Each document bore the royal seal, the queen's handwriting, the papal mark, the signatures of courtiers long dead. As Miguel read, the truth unraveled like silk. The queen had not acted alone. A faction within the church had conspired with her to remove the infant prince from Madrid, fearing that the child's genetic illness, the Habsburg curse, would doom the dynasty. But instead of killing the baby, they arranged a secret exchange. A dying peasant child was placed in the royal cradle. The real prince, Miguel, was taken to the mountains under Jesuit protection. And it was the Inquisition, not France, that had hunted the queen's agents afterward. The death of the infant prince had been a cover-up. His burial, a charade. The crown itself had been built upon a lie. Miguel stood in stunned silence. "So, my mother was never a traitor." Inez's eyes glistened. "No, she was the only one who dared tell the truth." Mateo crossed himself. "If this ever reaches Madrid, it will shatter the throne. The Inquisition will burn anyone who touches it." Miguel looked at the papers, the weight of his lineage pressing upon him. "Then let them burn," he said quietly, "but not before Spain sees the fire." They returned to the surface just before dawn. The bells of the cathedral tolled for early mass. The city below shimmered in the mist, unaware that its entire royal history had just been rewritten beneath its streets. But even as they stepped into the cold morning air, a sound reached them, the clatter of boots on stone. "Run!" Mateo hissed. From the shadows emerged soldiers in the king's livery. At their head was a familiar figure, the captain, bloodied but alive, his eyes burning with hatred. "I told you, bastard," he sneered. "Spain has no place for ghosts." Steel flashed. The fight erupted in the cloister courtyard, torches scattering light across the ancient stones. Inez fired a hidden pistol, felling one soldier. Mateo fell to his knees, struck by a blade meant for Miguel. "Go!" the old monk gasped. "Take the truth to the world." Miguel seized Inez's hand, clutching the bundle of letters to his chest. Together, they fled toward the river, pursued by shouts and gunfire. They crossed the Puente de San Martin under the light of a blood-red dawn, the same omen that had followed him since birth. Behind them, the bells of Toledo tolled again, not for mass, for death. By the time the sun rose, Miguel and Inez were gone. Some say they fled to France, others that they sought refuge in the Pyrenees once more. But what none could deny was that within days, whispers began to spread of hidden letters, of royal lies, of a living heir. The Inquisition silenced many. The king's health worsened. The empire began to fracture. And somewhere, hidden among the mountains or the cloisters of exile, the lost heir of Spain, Don Felipe de Austria, watched the kingdom tremble on the edge of revelation. Whether he chose to return or vanish forever, no record tells. Only this survived, written in his hand upon the final page of Father Adrian's journal. "I was born of 2 crowns and raised in shadow. If Spain remembers me, let it not be as a king, but as the truth it feared." The page is dated 1656. After that, history is silent, but the legend remains, a whisper carried through Spain's golden palaces and ancient cathedrals, the lost heir who never died, the queen who defied her king, and the empire built upon a single vanished cradle. And if you stand in the old cathedral of Toledo, when the bells ring at dawn, they say you can still hear a faint echo beneath the stone, a child's cry, unanswered, yet eternal, the sound of a kingdom's secret, refusing to die. You have just listened to one of Europe's deepest royal mysteries, the story of Spain's lost heir. If you wish to hear more untold truths and hidden histories, subscribe to History One, where every secret the past tried to bury, we will dig up again.